Welcome to ECTV Live. I'm Rusty Fender. Thank you for joining us. David DeCosmo, as you can see, is absent today. The flu apparently hit the DeCosmo household, so we certainly hope that Dave's wife, Leona, has a short bout with this terrible thing. I had one of the worst head colds in my life for like the last 4 weeks or so, so it wasn't even the flu, but it was darn close. But we will carry on, so get better soon, Leona. And joining us today on the show is Martin Hennahan. He is just about a household word here in the area for the past couple of years. He has an organization called Forever Sammy. And Martin, thanks for joining us here on ECTV.
Thank you, Rusty, for having me. And for David at home, I hope you and Leona get well soon.
Absolutely, and it is going around, as a matter of fact. The Forever Sammy Foundation. Tell us about the foundation, but more importantly, Martin, tell us about Sammy.
Okay, well, Sammy was my daughter. She was born in 1992, and you know, obviously we had a lot of hopes, a lot of dreams, as parents do. And throughout her, you know, younger years, as an adolescent, she was very bubbly, very bright personality, lovable child, very intelligent, and that became. You know, that was very obvious for us that she was highly intelligent. And as she got into her early teens, she started to experiment with some alcohol. And my wife, you know, she kind of recognized some of the symptoms. I also suffer with chemical and substance abuse dependency. You know, that's a part of my past as well. And so what she did is she took the action to get her put into a treatment facility, a local treatment facility. Which she did complete. She came home, and after having a slip up, we had her sent back into that treatment facility again. And something stuck at that point. Something grabbed a hold of her at that time, and she got sober and stayed sober for about 3 years. And during her sobriety, you know, she helped a lot of young girls. She believed that it was important to try to give back hope to other children, other people just like her. And that helped her with her own sobriety. Unfortunately, you know, addiction is so powerful that it sometimes calls us back, and it sometimes lies to us and tells us we can do it differently, we can do it successfully.
Just one more time.
Just one more time, yeah. And so ultimately she did end up relapsing, and it started a downward spiral in her life. And me and my wife, recognizing it, you know, once again, relied on the professionals and sent her to different treatment facilities. We sent her as far as Florida. We sent her as close as Wilkes-Barre, and we encouraged her recovery. And we tried to keep it downplayed in our household because we didn't want to embarrass her. Also, you know, we didn't want to embarrass our families. We were worried that our families would feel embarrassed. And so we kept it kind of personal and to ourselves. Ultimately, I ended up having her arrested by a friend of mine who's in law enforcement. And we did that out of kindness and out of love.
Probably saved her life at the time.
And I believe we did. I believe we did. And, you know, I have also paid a lot of consequences for my past. And, you know, having had some personal experience with that aspect of addiction, you know, people told me when that happened, they said, well, at least you'll know where she is and you'll know she's safe and you'll be able to sleep. And for me, that only became a half-truth. I knew that she was safe, but I didn't sleep real well.
Did you take any of the blame for that? Because all of a sudden, did you think that maybe she picked it up from you having abuse in the past? Did you think that that was a family liaison there?
Well, absolutely.
Absolutely.
I mean, I think, and still to this day, there are some times that,
sure,
that I go back to that guilt.
And say the apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
Sure, sure. And, you know, there's different debates, I guess, is the best way to put it, that addiction is hereditary. And some believe it is, and some believe it isn't. And, you know, for us, all I know is that my daughter had it. And ultimately, we're going to have her put on the color systems with Lackawanna County. Hopefully give her some of that external motivation, and hope that the roots of recovery would grasp her again, and so that she can get sober.
And it must have really hurt because she was so bubbly and outgoing, as you said. I mean, not that it ever doesn't hurt. Don't take me the wrong way, but
sure,
if you're a reclusive introvert, I don't think you have really that much of an impact on people to say that she would make an impact or she
Sure.
didn't, but she would have made an impact being outgoing.
Absolutely, and you know, when she got sober, she used that to her benefit. People were drawn to her. She had an infectious smile,
Magnetic personality.
When she spoke to you, you believed you were the only one that mattered at that time. She used those.
Traits.
Yeah, those traits, or those characteristics. She became a personal banker, so she broke all of the different stereotypes that a drug addict or an alcoholic is somebody who's under a bridge, or it's somebody who can't succeed in life. And she broke all of those boundaries. She was a personal banker for Wells Fargo Bank at the age of 20 years old. She had her
Fortune
own
500
office.
company. Can't do any better than that.
Yeah, and you know, and again, and she also had, you know, she never let go of her free spirit. She had her own motorcycle license. She enjoyed shooting pools. She enjoyed snowboarding and skateboarding and all of those things. So she really had the best of all of it. And addiction robbed her of all of that. Less than 24 hours before she was to report for those urinalysis tests, me and my wife had gotten an anonymous text message that she was not responding to her telephone. And ultimately, on April 10th of 2016, we went down to a local motel, and upon entering, we had found her deceased from a drug overdose. And for a lot of people, and unfortunately, it's kind of catapulted me into a position where people reach out to me, and I'm grateful for that. I'm humbled, and I always recognize that it's a very sensitive issue when people's family members or loved ones pay the ultimate sacrifice to this
Shows
disease.
that people care about this.
And it does. And you know, you would think that the story would end there, but the story didn't end there. The love from my wife for my daughter, and as well as my own, we knew that Sammy would want the truth to be told. And at the time, it was not really commonplace. Excuse me. You know, the newspapers would say, you know, died unexpectedly, passed suddenly at home.
We know the verbiage when they write something like that, because you just don't die usually in your early 20s.
Right, correct.
Just usually don't die.
Right, and you know, and you know, through a meeting that we had with some local officials, they asked me, and some other people had asked me, why did you put that in the paper? And my answer was very simple, and I believe it's as honest as I could say. I said, well, being in recovery, I know of scores of friends who have passed, and the obituary says died unexpectedly. And let me add that I don't hold any opinion on that. There is no right or wrong way to you know, to memorialize your loved one in those final days. However, for us, I knew that it was, we go to the funeral or the wake's house, and we go through the receiving line, and we say, I'm sorry for your loss, I'm sorry for your loss, I'm sorry for your loss. And then we go into the back room and we congregate and we go, I'll bet you it was drugs. And I said, we just simply wanted to say, stop the whispers. Yes, it's drugs. Drugs are here. They've been stealing children for, you know, alcoholism has been stealing since man crushed grapes, and
Nothing to be ashamed of. I didn't sell her the drugs.
Right.
I have nothing to be ashamed of for us as a family member.
Yeah, and that's kind of become our slogan. A lot of people know on our, you know, the different events that we do, it's called, we always say, stop the whispers. We're here, you know, and the message that we want to say is, you know, that people can recover from this. Samantha recovered from this. There's girls. We usually have an addiction awareness rally somewhere around Samantha's birthday every year over at the Lackawanna County Courthouse Square. And there's always a girl who speaks there who knew Sammy personally, who Sammy helped on their first days. And some of them are still sober today and attribute their sobriety to Samantha being the one who welcomed them at the door when they walked in.
It's probably a moot point at this point, but how did she get involved? Peer pressure?
Well, you know, you really never know, because in the beginning onsets, somebody comes home the first time with alcohol.
Absolutely, yeah, sure.
Yeah, you know, somebody comes home the first time with alcohol under breath. The parents don't just send them off to rehab.
Say, just don't do it again, and you should be a little wiser next time in your choice of drinks.
Right. You hope that the consequence of you're grounded, give me your cell phone, no internet,
correct,
is enough of a deterrent for them to say, maybe I shouldn't do this. And you hope that it's a phase. At the point in time where, you know, she started to continue to do those things in spite of the consequences, we had to recognize there may be a problem here. At that point in time, that's when we decided to take some action. How do we help? And that's one of the things that we try to help with family members with that are struggling with loved ones who are still with us, but struggling with active drug addiction and alcoholism, is there's a very fine line between support and enabling. And what is that fine line? Well, there's some do's and there's some don'ts. And which ones work for you? Well, there's no cookie cutter instructions to it. And so what it is it's a trial and error. And the hope is that through the effort of the trying, you can ultimately find a solution that is sufficient enough for your child. And because at the end of the day, most people are worried about their child. The same way that I know I'm worried about mine. And so we try to do that humbly. We're grateful that the community, the response that we've gotten from the community is overwhelming some days. I can get emotional just thinking about it, because some people say, what a terrible thing. And I say, we did our clothing drive, and one of the reporters that was present, one of the volunteers said, "Do you like what you see?" to the reporter, and the reporter said, "No, I don't." And I said, well, I can answer that both ways. I can say, no, I don't, and yes, I do. Obviously, I don't like to see the suffering and the pain of a fellow human being. I just don't. But I like to see the kindness expressed by those people who are willing to help them.
And we talked about this before the show, that one of the building blocks, Tom Munley,
Sure.
He and David DeCosmo on this show, he was very instrumental the last time in the county with helping out for the cause.
Absolutely. Tom Munley, phenomenal guy.
Absolutely.
And he really supports and encourages this movement. I believe that he's had an opportunity to see it from a legal standpoint, as well as now a judicial standpoint. And he's doing monumental things.
He is, as president judge. Good for Tom.
Yeah, and and we're just honored and again, I'm just so grateful to have people like that in our corner.
Way back when, how did you get involved in the drug situation? Was it one of these deals where it was your friend saying, "Come on, Marty, don't be a square"?
Well, you know what? To be honest with you, a little bit about my story is even before I started using drugs, I had, I believe, some insecurities and some fears that I didn't want to tell people about.
Mm-hmm.
I said, you know what, like, does everybody feel this way? And they're just not saying anything, so I kept it to myself.
So this was the cushioning blow.
Yeah. So when I reached out, I like to say it like, it was kind of like I had an emotional toothache, only I didn't know I had an emotional toothache. Mm-hmm. If you have a toothache and somebody hands you antibiotics and Tylenol, and you get relief from that, well, the next morning when you wake up and your toothache returns, your mind remembers antibiotics
Absolutely.
and Tylenol. Well, for me, my emotional toothache got that relief from drugs and alcohol. So the next morning, when these emotions or these inferiorities or these insecurities or fears would creep up and anxieties, my mind would remember drugs and alcohol will give you relief from that. And ultimately, it turned on me. And I started to pay prices that I wasn't willing to pay in the beginning. And I'm actually in the middle of writing a book, and the name of the book is called We Didn't Mean It. Because I know in my own personal life, it wasn't in the plan. If you were to ask me in 3rd grade, what do you want to be when you get older, Mart? It wouldn't have said, I want to be disappointing to my daughter. I want to upset my son by not showing up when I say I'm going to show up. I want to leave my wife for various periods of time as a single mother of 2 struggling. It wasn't in the plan.
I think we all know that there's a fine line between occasional relief and a demon.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's one of the things that I tell people. Sometimes they get misinterpretations of what the Forever Sammy Foundation is about. And I quite often say, I don't run around the streets of Scranton or Lackawanna County or any place for that matter saying, don't do this, don't do that. I just simply say, I came to a point in my life where I realized I couldn't. And through the kindness of some people that have found a solution to that, I no longer have to. And so if there's somebody who's struggling that if they're willing and they would like some help, I can help that. But, some people can recreationally do what they do, and, my hat's off to them.
The Forever Sammy Foundation, let's tell us about now. Thursday, the event is February 22nd, 7 until 9, at the Icebox Complex. Tell us about the event, Marty.
Well, this was a family event that we started last year. It was held on a Thursday, February last year, and coincidentally, it was right after we got about 8 inches of snow, and we weren't sure if we were going to get a turnout or not. And ultimately, about 200 to 300 people showed up, and so it was a really nice turnout. And what it is it's an opportunity for the family members to come out, those who are fearful of some of the things that their children or their loved ones may be going through, and they want to try to get some education on how can they, what is the difference between support and enabling, and what can they do to better support their loved one. We have a panel of speakers that are on the that will be on the panel this year. One of them is Tom DiPietro, a great supporter of positive movements in our community, and he'll be speaking more about some of the different or silent medications that people may not understand or recognize are dangerous, along with what to do with some of the medications that are unused, some questions they may want to ask, as well as Mark Powell, our commissioners, and representative.
You were
from a
lucky
local
last
treatment
year when you
facility.
hold a winter event, you're never quite sure about the weather. Even a couple days prior can kill you in an event.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You know, and it's funny that you say that, because we kind of go on the theory of we kind of just wing it. You know, we get an idea. We believe we respond to people's SOS with our own SOS. We respond with the spirit of Sammy. Recently, my wife had posted on social media one of the posts that Samantha had put on, and it said, nothing makes me happier than to see the beauty of a human being helping another human being that they don't even know. And she said, I like the world today. And that was one of Sammy's posts, and that was the kind of the spirit and the kind of girl that she was. And we just try to continue on with that spirit.
The good thing is that there is a website set up, and that is Forever Sammy, and that's SAMMI, foreversammy.org.
That's correct.
And a lot of the information which you just parlayed to us here and conveyed to us is actually on that site. Donations will be taken at this of food and soda, is how this works,
well,
Marty?
Well, what it is we, you know, the people that come, we don't want you to think that you have to pay $1 to come and enjoy a night out and get some education and have a bite to eat with some other people that are in the community that may be suffering with the same thing that you are. You know, feel free to come out. We do accept donations of food and refreshments to help offset some of the costs, but it is not a requirement. We just want people to come out, kind of have a good time and bite into the apple of hope that is recovery, and that your family can recover from this.
And it is good camaraderie of people who have never experienced drug addiction in their family, and I imagine those who have.
Sure, absolutely. We'll also be talking about some of the different symptoms and warning signs that some people may just dismiss without even recognizing. We just want to bring about some awareness to it. Some family members who may not see Johnny at the kitchen table as often as he used to be. And what is it? Well, it may just be a work schedule change, but it may be something a little more. And unless we're aware of a problem, we can't find a solution to it.
That is Thursday, February 22nd, 7 to 9 at the Icebox Complex. That's right off of Olive Street, across from Scranton High School.
Correct.
And have you found out what Samantha's drug of choice was?
Samantha's drug of choice was opiates. And so
Which
heroin.
you see on the
and-
billboards all the time. Heroin is at epidemic levels in
Yeah.
northeastern and central Pennsylvania. It's amazing. Why is that, Marty? Is it just too available and too cheap to get?
Well, I think, you know, and again, this is simply my opinion. I believe that, and this is not against the doctors, it is just simply against the protocol and some of the procedures. Back in the 80s, you didn't get a happy sign down to a sad sign at the hospital for your pain level. I believe that we've become a community that just wants to be comfortable, and we want to try to alleviate ourselves of any pain and discomfort. And I understand that. I don't want to see anybody in pain and discomfort if they need it, but I think it gets abused, and at some point in time, the doctors prescribe 10 for the month. And
Totally agree.
And then with addiction, the tolerance always goes up, never down. And then the doctor must prescribe 30, and then 60, and then 90, until ultimately the doctor gets to a point where he has to tell that patient, I cannot justify prescribing you anymore. And so that patient is uncomfortable, that patient is sick, and therefore resorts to the street level to get the relief that they want.
It's true, and I'm thankful for this, knock on wood, I'm a very healthy person. But if I go for my yearly checkup and I have a pain in my earlobe, I come out with 20 oxycodone. Like, it's just so easy to get. It's so easily prescribed anymore to alleviate this. And then you get people who really need the money will put these things on eBay and sell them for $50 a pop. And there's a money value involved in this as well, along with the addiction.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you know, there's a lot of different things, and there's different opinions, and so that there's a huge cauldron of debate that I don't wish to dive into. But I will say that I have my opinion. I believe that some regulation really, instead of just talking about regulation, that there has to be some bills, there has to be some real regulation put in place, implemented, along with a watchdog over that regulation of those prescription medications. Because if not, I don't see the end in sight yet.
We're speaking with Marty Hennahan of the Forever Sammy organization. Now, ways to donate as well. Marty, 570-906-0889 is a good phone number.
That's correct.
But of course, the same numbers and information contained on the foreversammy.org. And again, that is SAMMI.org for the organization. What are you looking forward to at this get-together this year? Something new added to it every year? And more positive energy, I would suspect.
Correct. What we have there is we'll also have some treatment facilities that coming out, so that if somebody there, it'll be a three-part series. It will be the first one will be the panel will discuss a little bit on their personal experience. The second phase will be a question and answer session. We do like a question ask it basket. We encourage people that come to write down a question and put it in a basket. And the reason we do that is so that they can anonymously ask a question, because the truth is a lot of people still have this huge stigma, and they don't want to raise their hand in front of a group of 300 people and say, my son John is a heroin addict, and what do I do? And so we're giving them that opportunity to write that question down, put it in the basket. It will be asked anonymously to the panel, and that person can get an answer to some of those tough questions.
Does it ever get easy? She's gone a long time. I imagine this helps with her in mind.
It does help me, and it's always yesterday for me. It's always yesterday. She's always here. And I am an emotional guy, and I never apologize for that. But I look at her picture and I blink, and it's yesterday. And so I use that pain as motivation to continue. And the foundation is doing well. We're now a recognized, nationally recognized, federally recognized 501c3. Me, myself, personally, I'm a 100-aire. But it was never about the dollar anyway. And I do find myself sometimes a little bit infuriated with some of the other organizations where I call them profit from pain. They ask, we get asked quite often, maybe we could link up for this. And I say, well, what do you do? And they don't really do anything with money. And what we do with our donations is we actually put our money where our mouth is. There's kids that are homeless on the streets because their families are done with them. And we help them get into treatment. And then from treatment centers, should they do whatever suggested that they're told to do while in treatment, and they successfully complete it and they have nowhere to go, we will pay for their first month in the treatment.
Marty, it's a never-ending circle. You get, and I wouldn't name any, but these national charities, these national foundations to help women, to help men, to help drug abusers, and then, they're nonprofit, yet their CEO gets $13 million a year.
Correct.
So I can see where they come from, where there's also people saying, you know what, if somebody on a national basis can get paid for it, then there's going to be money involved in this organization as well. And I don't think that's really right. You should have to have a dividing line to segregate that.
Sure,
right?
Absolutely. And, I understand that people and foundations, they run on expenses. I mean, there's expenses that we always have, but I don't believe that the expenses should entail a vacation down in the Bahamas.
Exactly.
And I don't believe that. Our mission is always going to be continue to carry the spirit of Sammy locally. People donate here in Lackawanna, Luzerne County, and the money is spent right here at home. And it doesn't mean that we don't encourage people in other communities to help, but we're just worried about our backyard for right now. We can't cure or fix the world. We're just trying to go out there and help one. And if we could help that one and encourage him to change his life, Mother Teresa said it best, if you help one person change their life, you just help change the world. And so we believe that. So we'll continue doing that, and we'll continue to stop the whispers.
Well put. Remember, as you said here on the poster, there's strength in numbers. Together we will stop the whispers. Give us the times and events and the location one more time
Sure.
for the audience, Marty.
This Thursday, Thursday, February 22nd, at the Icebox Sports Complex in Scranton on 3 Olive Street. The main entrance, there'll be signs showing you on the way in. Doors will be open at 6:30. The panel discussion will start and end at 9 p.m. There will be a half-hour mingle session to ask any questions that you may have, that may crop up during the event. And we hope to see everybody there. It's really going to be a great opportunity to show the community that we do recover and we do support the recovery.
And it's a free demonstration, Marty, on the disease of the mind riddled with denial, also known as addiction. A very somber topic today on ECTV Live. Marty Hennahan, thank you so much for joining us from the Forever Sammy organization and the foundation. Thank you again, and good luck with the cause.
Well, thank you very much for having us. And Dave, once again, thank you, and I hope you feel better soon.
Absolutely. David E. Cosmo back again next week with us. Mark McGlory, the technical guru, thank you so much for all your expertise as usual. For David, Mark, and I'm Rusty Fender on ECTV Live. Back here again next week.